So you might have actually gotten baited because Calvin may actually have possession of a Dglo championship, but it was not 2023. Let's find out who that actually was. Alright, so this was by far one of the best Dglos I think I've ever seen. You could definitely argue that Paul's perfect round met that criteria, but for me there was so much electricity going on in this event because you had so many players that were fighting for the win. At one point there was like 7 people in first place, and I thought we might actually get like some crazy playoff, which would be sick to get playoff holes in the playoffs, but whatever, I digress. In terms of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, it doesn't really mean anything, so we move on. So just some honorable mentions for the day. Even though these actually are the third place finishers and they probably should get some more recognition, they just weren't really in the mix, and they only kind of podium because of some pretty bad play by the leaders here. So that would be Dickerson and Cole Redolin. Now they definitely had some tremendously good shots. They were playing very good, but ultimately being smooth and having clean power is just not enough to take down a win. And by far both of their biggest missteps for the tournament was their putting, with a very poor circle 2 percentage and circle 1s that were sub 80%. That is just really not going to cut it. But the major standout for them be one of the lowest OB percentages in the entire field, which allowed them to get a lot less strokes on this heavily OB'd course. But on to the main contenders. First up, we gotta talk about Calvin, and he was a player that I thought if he did take it down, it would be one of the best wins in history, because starting the day, he was 3 strokes behind the leader and he was just lighting it up, but in just the most bizarre fashion. And by that, I mean he was not birdieing most of the first 5 holes, only taking 1 under, which you might be thinking like, oh yeah, I mean, that's still decent, whatever. But then he entered the shadow realm and it was just madness. Takes what I consider to be one of the greatest upshots of the year, a 300-foot throw-in. And with an insane overstable approach forehand, it just does not seem like that should be a good shot to go for. And I don't even think he was going for the basket, but it just jams right in the basket for an eagle from 300. And you might be thinking like, cool, I mean, he's still kind of like behind the mix. It doesn't really matter. You would be wrong. He proceeded to get a turkey on the next 3 holes, birdieing all of them. And then on hole 10, we hear some screams and I'm like, interesting. I wonder what that's about. There's no way that anybody aced because these holes are just ridiculous. And that was right. There was no aces. But on hole 10, matching some great shots from Calvin in the past, he not only parks it, but he actually jams it in the basket for another 250-foot plus throw in. And at this point, I am just losing my mind. I am just like, Calvin, how are you doing this? This is total madness. Do you know what you're doing? So at this point, he was actually tied for first with Simon Lizotte. And I was thinking, you know what? This might happen. This is a insane reality. I don't think it'll happen, but it might be that Calvin just gets the craziest final round and takes down the win. Ultimately, this is reality, and that's just not going to happen if you're that many strokes behind and an incredibly good leader. So even with an insane putt, even with insane comebacks, even with insane throw-ins, again, because he had an amazing throw-in that you might call an ace a couple weeks ago. Even with all that, he just couldn't quite pull it together. Had some bad OBs. Ultimately didn't even have that great of a circle 2 percentage in his final round. He did have a couple of good 50-footers in round 2, but ultimately was just kind of mid in his putting, which I would love to see him shine, especially before Worlds, but still a great finish with 5th place. But I think the biggest gripe for Calvin right now is that he just needs to increase his consistency. So many shots just don't go the way that he plans, and then he's out of position, and then he makes his hero shots, but it's just for par or for a bogey save, and that's just not going to cut it. So then there were 3, and the next person, I was waiting for this moment to happen for so long, and that would be KJ US of A. KJ was definitely doing good. I was thinking good things. It was actually one of the hottest rounds in round 1, and I was like, all right, I know he's played good here in the past, so maybe this is his time to shine. And honestly, he held up very, very well. There was not too many shots throughout the entire tournament that I was really saying, oh, this is like a bad round for Kevin. Like, no, he was playing very, very well. But with a lackluster round 3 and ultimately just poor back 9 for the entire duration of the tournament, it is a hard back 9, but he just was not performing as well as you need to gain strokes on the field. And even though he was in the mix so many times and had some great putts, some real confidence to his throw, he just fell a little bit flat, especially in the end. Finishes with a double, which I think doesn't necessarily matter because he was kind of going for that birdie to tie the 2nd place finisher, but ultimately just didn't finish the way that he would like and gets a 5th place finish, even though he was fighting for the win the entire duration of the tournament. And for me, I think the biggest thing that I want to see out of KJ is just a level of awareness and care to his drives. There were so many shots that I feel like he rushes just a little bit more than he needs to, and I don't know if it's like a mental thing or some kind of just mental barrier going on, but I think I really want to see him gather up his like mojo and confidence, because he was playing loose and confident round 1 and 2. He was by far the best player, and I don't really know what changed in round 3 and 4. I assume it was the pressure, but if he can just gather all of those good vibes and generate a good Worlds, then I think there's a true chance for him to take it down, because he's playing hot right now. Just not quite as hot as other players, but still this is probably one of the peaks of his entire year. Obviously we have LVC where he kind of choked a little bit in the final round and could have gotten the win, but Calvin took it. I think we're getting back to that form of KJ where he is just playing as good, if not better, than everybody else in the field. And then we get to the almighty battle between the Crush Boys. I'm sure they might not be Crush Boys anymore, but it doesn't matter. So Simon and Eagle were neck and neck. There were so many points that I was just like, oh, we might actually get this battle. That would be so sick. And even though they were neck and neck towards the end, at the start, it really wasn't even that close, because Simon was playing kind of mid and Eagle was playing electric like he does at this course. And going into more depth, Simon ended round 1 with 5 OB throws. And on the flip side, Eagle was just playing like balls to the wall, very confident. You could tell that his putter stroke was feeling good. Every single putt, most of his drives were just exactly how he would want them to go. And besides a pretty poor circle 1 in round 1, he was playing very well, and I thought, yeah, this is probably going to be another Dglo win for Eagle. But then the entire thing flipped and Simon was just taking charge. Getting 7 through 7 on round 3, it was looking like, okay, I think Simon might run away with this. He was playing so well, ended his third round with 11 under, and once again got another round with 100% circle 1. Whereas Eagle was falling off a bit, he was following the same trend as KJ, even though he had some amazing putts from circle 2. It just was not enough to gather a good round, and ultimately where Simon got 11 under, Eagle only got 6. So going into round 4, there was a very unfortunate putt for Eagle. He has a great drive, hits the basket on his putt, ultimately rolls out of bounds, and then he putts for bogey. And if you are Simon, you are definitely not going to give up a stroke in that moment. So he gets a birdie and then instantly flips it from a battle to more so Simon taking charge and being in the lead by a couple of strokes. So in kind of insane fashion, Eagle actually matched Simon's shots shot for shot up until hole 12 besides that initial bogey. So they were playing some of the best golf that they've ever played this year, and it was looking like it might be a playoff, might get something crazy, even though Simon did have the lead for a bit. And with some of the most insane putts, like Eagle's 69-foot throw-in from like out of nowhere. I don't know how he made that. Eagle was fighting back, and then through 15, it was a 2-stroke lead, and ultimately that was all Simon needed to just coast on in. And then on hole 16, Eagle was throwing first, went straight out of bounds, making it a very good opportunity for Simon to take charge, and he did some of the most insane things I've ever seen in a tournament. He went straight OB, and because the OB is lined right after the basket, there really is no penalty, assuming that your lie is right next to the basket. So the card decided he went out of bounds right after the basket, so we only had to make a 10-footer for an easy par, which arguably you might say is a bad decision because it's not that difficult of a hole for them. There definitely is room for a pretty bad bogey, so I don't really agree with the shot, but it was amazing. It was Simon-esque. Even though he's not doing his Simon lines, he is doing Simon plays, like going straight out of bounds intentionally. It worked out for him. He gains a stroke on Eagle, and he finishes par and gets the freaking Dglo championship win right before Worlds. He might be breaking the curse. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I think this is the time for Simon to take down a world championship. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm feeling confident for it, but ultimately Simon was just looking cool, calm, and collected. I think that is a very good sign for things in the future. Even if he never gets to that M, he's still looking so good, looking so strong. And with that, I have to say that Eagle's also looking really good. I think his putting was just some of the best I've seen from him in a while, and his drives, while he doesn't have the most good forehand and he kind of has to like manipulate weird things on turnover shots, he's still playing amazing. I think he really is feeling more back to form, and really the only misstep Eagle is making towards the end was just a few unlucky out of bounds, so you really can't beat yourself up too much over that. So ultimately a great finish. So many good holes were played. I had so much fun watching this tournament, and even though I think the title of playoffs is so arbitrary and doesn't really matter, it was still an amazing event, and I look forward to Worlds because we finally get back to a good Worlds course. Sorry Emporia, you were not for me, and even though you're my home state, you're just not that good. So what did you guys think about this course? What did you think about the entire 4 rounds? Did you think that Calvin might take it home after some of the most insane throw-ins we have ever seen. I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. I have some crazy stuff lined up. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.